the Bible half hour. Everybody knows the aim. The aim's written right under my little face, right here. This is why we do it every day. And you are welcome in. Any questions or comments as we work through Exodus? I think we're on to chapter 16. You just put it in the chat. Exodus 16:25. I'm pretty sure this is, yeah. This morning, this day, may we think, speak, and feel in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And welcome in, Diane. And welcome in, Chrissy C. Right. It was a late night last night. It was Diane's party. We all got in about 8 o'clock. Heavy one. Learning about teleportation in the new heavens and the new earth. But we're back here now. So let's get this Bible up. So, they're getting bread and manna from heaven and quail, and the Lord's looking after them in the wilderness because they're on the way to the promised land, having left Egypt. 24. So they saved it until morning, as Moses commanded. He did, and it did not stink. Oh yeah. Nor did it get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. Let's see what this says here. Manna sounds like the Hebrew word for what is it? It was like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Lots of Bible cookbooks out there if you want to know what that tastes like. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come. So they will see the bread I gave you to eat it in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt. So Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna on it. Then place it before the Lord to be kept for generations to come. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put manna with the tablets of the covenant of the law, that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah. I got a little jar over there in the Ark of the Covenant. Inside. That's where the bread goes. Exodus chapter 17. This is a big chapter, and pretty much the whole Christian faith and what we believe is on this one. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Moses replied, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst. You've got to ask, with all this repetition against grumbling, can a grumbler be a Christian? Like, all right, forget just grumbler. What about frequent grumbler? Like, when you consider what a Christian is, it's supposed to be a person of gratefulness to God who knows that they deserve nothing and has yet received so much. God himself. How? How can a Christian be a constant grumbler? Everything's always everybody else's fault. I'm sad because this. When you ask them how they are, they never will say yes, happy or good or grateful. They just reach for the negative. Look at what the Lord thinks about grumbling in these chapters we've been going through. Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." And by the way, if you're a grumbler, you can be saved right now this morning. The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" This is the Christian ancient declaration of faith. We, sinners, are in a desert. Jesus comes alongside us in our spiritual need. He gets struck. Wood is involved. Cross in his case. Water pours out. Everlasting water of life for the people to drink. You can live with Jesus. He says to people, "If you drink my water, you'll never thirst again." The Apostle Paul knows exactly what this story is about. And in 1 Corinthians 10, he said, these people, drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them. And that rock was Christ. That stick would have smacked that rock, and the Lord was right next to it. Looks like it would have been striking him. And from that pours, or from him pours the water to keep them going. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled. Because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" That's what Psalm 95 is about. Massah and Meribah, not Mara, or whatever it was a few chapters ago that I said Psalm 95 is based on. It's this event. Massah and Meribah, grumbling. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites." "Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." By the way, this is no small attack. These pesky Amalekites. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on the one side, one on the other, and that his hands remained steady until sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekites with the army. Now this attack is no small thing. The Lord reminds them what they did in Deuteronomy 25. You got a tired church, and the thing that makes them win the battle is when they are looking up to a man on a hill whose arms are outstretched wide. He's got a staff behind his neck. Like that. You know, you got it on the shoulders. Up there, gets tired, it's down there. You're looking like Jesus on the cross. You've got two men either side of you. And Christians always look to a weak man dying on a cross for their weakness, to draw strength. That's what they do here. Christians are not Lamborghinis on the way to church. They're not people who have got turbochargers. They're not souped up humans. The Lord takes out the turbo. He gives us afflictions and weakness so that he can display our strength through his strength through our weakness. Ricky B, I love the short bead episode about this part of the story. I do as well. And the rock one. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. There's little Jesus down the bottom there. That's what that word means. Big Jesus somewhere. Middle Jesus on the hill there, Moses, and little one down the bottom. Jesus everywhere in this story. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be our war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. You can read about that. They were nasty. They picked off the weak people, didn't they? Exodus chapter 18. Now Jethro, we've heard him before. He's got a couple of names. At the moment he's Jethro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard everything God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, don't know why, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her two sons. One son was named Gershom. Let's have a look at that. A foreigner. For Moses said, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. And the other was Eleazar. Let's look at that. Can't skip Moses' children, can we? God is my helper. For he said, my father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped, near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, I, your father-in-law, am coming to you with your wife and her two sons. Now, if you like small groups in church, you're going to like Exodus chapter 18. Yaha. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way and how the Lord had saved them. I mean, that's no small conversation for Jethro to sit through. Can you imagine his face? Well, as he's a priest already, he'll have probably been like, yeah, that sounds about right to me. I know this, Lord. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, praise be to the Lord who rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians and of Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood round him from morning till evening. That's like coffee, chat and pray, but a long version. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Golden oldies in my case yesterday. Moses answered him, "Because the people came to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions." Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them serve as judges for the people at all times, but let them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain and all these people will go home satisfied. Ricky B, remind me to read that Saturday morning. We'll do that. It'll help us order our minds. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned home. Now, Moses is a giant killer. More giants than David ever killed. But this sort of pastoral stuff, it was a real giant that was getting him down. I mean, he had 3 million people grumbling, and he was anxious. And he says in Deuteronomy 1, this is what he was going through. He says, I was thinking this, how can I bear your problems and burdens and all your disputes all by myself? That's Deuteronomy 1:12. So I took men and appointed them over hundreds, fifties, and tens. Enough in the end for one leader per 10. Little house groups, little small groups. And then he says at the end of Deuteronomy, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord goes with you. He will never leave you. This was his giant. The other actual giants that he'll be killing left, right, and centre, no problem. Like anxiety, stress, whopper for Moses, that Jethro said, this is the one you need help with. And there are giants today in church life that we need help helping people with. Ephesians 6 lists like a list of giants, which is difficult challenges. And then it says like marriages, hard work, raising children. Hebrews 13 lists giants that we face today. It says, go on loving each other, show hospitality to strangers, do these good works, visit people in prison. Marriage should be honoured by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. For God judges those who are sexually immoral. Keep your lives free from the love of money. And then he says, because I will never leave you nor forsake you. Which is quoting Moses, who was helped with his little giants, which were big to him, but may have seemed very small to an outsider. Pastoral care, that's nothing. Well, get a real job. What do you do on Saturdays and the rest of the week? Well, it was getting Moses right way down. And then the Hebrews writer quotes that for all the giants we face in today's church life. Fascinating chapter. Exodus 19. Wowzer. Big. 17, 18, 19. Are there better chapters in the Bible? No. That was not even a rhetorical question. Oh yes, no, it was a rhetorical question. Whatever the one is where I already knew the answer. On the first day of the 3rd month after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day, they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain. This is important. He goes up to God, then a Lord calls him from a mountain and says, this is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. So it's difficult in the English to know which Lord that was at the moment, but stay tuned. Remember, there's 3 bouncing around the place. So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words of the Lord had commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, we will do everything the Lord has said. So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you. Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, English is rubbish. He didn't say that. If you're just listening audibly, that was an injection from me. And the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Make them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Now it's getting a bit more clear. He's talking to one, I think is about halfway up here. And he's like, see the top up there? Yeah, the Lord's coming on day 3, so get ready. I think he's chatting to the physical Lord here. Put limits up for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches this mountain is to be put to death. They are to be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on them. No person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horns sound a long blast may they approach the mountain. So they're allowed to come to God, get to know him, get to meet this Lord who's coming on the 3rd day. Heavenly rest in that presence of that Lord. You can't come on your own terms, because you'll just die. You can't just approach God in your sin without a mediator. So there are boundaries. On my conditions, come. Same today. Jesus, he's the only way to come to God, right? Anyone who thinks they're in touch with God that doesn't involve Jesus, the Bible's got a problem with that. After Moses had gone down to the mountain, the people, he consecrated them and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, prepare yourselves for the 3rd day, abstain from sexual relations. It's like, get focused, all energies on this big event. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning, with thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God. They stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. What's that? What's this thing? Answered him with thunder. Oh, okay. Right. Maybe. The Lord descended on the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish." Now, I actually think this one is the Son of God, the physical one, also up there now. It gets really difficult in the English to unriddle this. I spent ages on that episode of Shortbread, because this physical one actually speaks again a bit later on, but so does the non-physical Lord. And they both have a hand in giving the commandments out. It ain't easy, man, in this language of ours. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them. Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy." The Lord replied, "Go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. Exodus chapter 20. And God spoke all these words. "I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall not have any gods before me." So the Old Testament is not a works-based way to worm your way up to impressing God. Any obedience first has to come from this fact that he has redeemed me, saved me, rescued me. I am a recipient of his gracious, saving mercy and love. And therefore, I get to live his life for me on earth. And I'm not going to have any other gods, but this one. "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commands. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name." And Paul actually says you can blaspheme his name by your actions. You can show that the Lord's name means nothing to you by just the way you live. In fact, that's the main way that people blaspheme. Anyone can just fling out meaningless noises, which people might think, "Oh, that's blasphemy." And I suppose it is. But the way that you live, according to the apostle, has caused other people to blaspheme the name of the Lord by the way that you, the church, live. "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor daughter, nor your male, nor female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." And ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:45. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. I hope something in these wonderful chapters has nestled into your hearts this morning as we go about our day. carry on chatting in the Park End Bible sharing group on the WhatsApp community. If you want to join, just let us know. Ciao.